Netherlands and asked for my job. He said, I just got orders from the Pentagon. They want you to go over and fence in the International Military Championships. CISM, Council of International Sports Militaire. Would I make you available? So I said, well, you just assigned me to a court martial. Don't worry about that. Canceling all those orders. You could go back to, I since I got out of law school, he said, go back to, you was in New York, he said, go back to the club, get yourself in shape, go over the fence. The only thing that surprised me is, how did they find out that I was a fencer? And when I got there, I realized how they found out. Joe left Colombia after 3 years of service because he got a visit from Air Force Intelligence. And Joe speaks perfect Spanish. It's his native language. As you see here, although we know him as Joe Velarde, his official name is Servando Jose Velarde. And they wanted him for a secret mission in Central America, so he went into the Air Force. Subsequently, after his mission, he stayed in the Air Force. He ultimately got out of the service as a lieutenant colonel. And when I got off the plane in Wiesbaden, Germany, who was there to meet me? But Joe Velarde at that time, a major. He was the coach of the military team. Now I found out how they found out that I was in the military service. So once again, I ended up fencing on Joe's team. Joe is, I guess, Joe is really famous in fencing because of the policy of eliminating racial discrimination. How did it happen? Joe arrived in Colombia in the fall of 1949. He entered a foil team in an AFLA tournament and sent the team down. The team had 3 white fencers and 1 black fencer. The black fencer's name was Justin Sheridan. When the team arrived at the club with Joe, they wouldn't allow the black fencer in. And Justin said, that's all right, Joe. There's only 3 people in the tournament. I'll go home and I'll fence in the tournament. Joe said, I'm the coach of the team. He says, I determine who fences on the team, and I determine it based upon 1 criteria, who I think could win. If you don't fence, the team doesn't fence. And so he withdrew the team, and they all went home. Now, ordinarily, in New York City, who cares whether Colombia enters a fencing team in the AFLA? Joe says he does. But Joe didn't let it drop there. As soon as he got home, he called every newspaper in the city of New York. And he told the newspapers that Columbia University would no longer enter fencing teams in the Amateur Fencers League of America because it supports and condones a policy of racial discrimination. Fencing in the football season couldn't even find the last page of a sports section for a result. But that Sunday morning, it was headline news. Not in the sports section, in the news section. So, all the papers in New York carried the story of Columbia withdrawal over the AFLA's policy of racial discrimination. Monday morning was a busy day for Joe Velarde. His first call came from the dean of Columbia College. He thought he was being fired before the season even started. But he was, to his delight and surprise, Columbia supported him. His second call was from the dean of the NYU Law School. At that time, Miguel de Capriles. Miguel de Capriles was the president of the AFLA. Joe went down to Miguel's office, and Miguel was very cordial. He said to Joe, he said, you're ahead of your time, and you're pushing too hard. These things have to be done gradually, and they take time. And Joe responded, I'm not ahead of my time and pushing too hard. The AFLA is behind the time and dragging its feet. He said, I flew 60 mid-combat missions over Nazi Germany because I support the Constitution of the United States and the principle of racial equality. As far as I'm concerned, the position that Columbia announced is final and non-negotiable. And he got up and left the meeting. 1 hour later, he gets the results of his work ended up in a one-line press release from the AFLA. The sanction fencing competitions at any venue that does not permit all AFLA members to compete regardless of race. In order to understand the magnificent accomplishment, you have to realize what life was like in 1949, 60 years ago. 1949 was 5 years before the United States Supreme Court decision in Brown versus the Board of Education that declared that racial discrimination in schools is unconstitutional. 1949 was 30 years before the passage of the Amateur Sports Act, which then legislatively said that national governing bodies could not be recognized as a national governing body or admitted to membership in the USFA unless it had an announced policy in its bylaws against racial discrimination. And 1949 was 35 years before Peter Westbrook won the bronze medal in the Los Angeles Olympics. So, in retrospect, Miguel DeCaprillis was right. Joe Velarde was ahead of his time. But because he was ahead of his time, and because he was a person of principle, we're now celebrating tonight his admission into the Hall of Fame. And I'd like to this time invite George Kalavanovich, the coach of the Columbia team, to come forward. I can't actually present the plaque to myself. So I'm asking George, this also means that I don't have to pack it in my bag tomorrow. George Kalavanovich, the coach of the Columbia team.
Advantage of being old and decrepit as I am is that I had the great pleasure back when I was 4 years old of taking lessons from Joe Velarde. My family were close friends with Joe Velarde. Joe Velarde, those that don't know him, you're missing something. He is one of the finest human beings on the face of this earth. He cares so much for equality, that every person be treated equally. And obviously from what Steve just said, you know that's the truth. It is an honor for me to take this plaque for Joe Velarde. Thank you.
To present our next award for our third coach of the Hall of Fame is Steve Bloom. Step right up, Steve.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everybody. It's an unbelievable honor to spend just a few minutes honoring one of my dearest friends and my lifelong fencing coach. He'll always be coach to me, Henry Haratunian. Actually, the words that I will speak were written largely by another dear friend of Henry's his whole life, and by the way, of my father's, and twice an Olympian, Jack Keane. Many of you here, most of you here, know who Jack is. If ever there was somebody who loved fencing from the beginning to the end, it would be Jack. Because of a family illness, he's not able to be here to deliver these words, but it's my opportunity. So let me read you what Jack wrote. And Jack, by the way, sends his love to everybody, and of course, especially Henry, to you. Not long ago, there was an ESPN documentary on the legendary Green Bay Packers coach, Vince Lombardi. There was plenty of exciting football to watch, but what really made the program memorable were the reminiscences of the great athletes who once played for Lombardi.